It's been 2.5 years since James Aikman had a dream of owning his own wildlife park. Today, that dream is a reality, but it's much bigger than he originally imagined and involves dozens of breeds of animals coexisting together. Join us as we go on location for this edition of the Paw Report to Aikman Wildlife Adventure. Stay with us.
Arcola Vet Clinic in Tuscola and Dr. Sally Foote remind you to properly take care of your pets and are happy to help support the Paw Report on WEIU. Arcola Vet Clinic located at 140 West Sale Street in downtown Tuscola. More information available at arcolavetclinic.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
Welcome for this special edition of the Paw Report. I'm your host, Kelly Runyon, and as you can see, we're not in the studio for this episode. We are on location at a special location, the Aikman Wildlife Adventure. And joining us for this episode is James Aikman, the owner of this wonderful park, and he's going to tell you all about this wonderful facility and all the friends that reside here. So thank you so much for spending some time with us on the Paw Report.
Not a problem. Happy to do it.
You know, as we were talking before this interview, just getting to know each other, I said probably the million-dollar question, and the question everyone has asked you over and over and over again is, how in the world did you come up with the idea to create a wildlife adventure?
Sure, yeah, so I was a banker for 10 years, and I'd always loved animals, but never thought I'd be doing anything like this. On the night of October 22nd, I had a dream that my wife and I owned and operated a wildlife park, and I thought it was a cool dream. I told her about it the next day. She said, "Our son's going to be born in about 2 weeks. We have enough on our plate. You need to just forget that." And I
forget the dream.
I agreed with her completely, and the next night I had the exact same dream. And so I told her, I said, "I don't know why, but I really feel like this is something God's wanting us to do." And so kind of from there, my finance background made me want to find out what all was involved from a financial aspect of a zoo or a theme park. And so we started researching what other places do as far as bringing in attendance and expenses like that, and kind of put together an annual budget and cash flow and took that out to 10 years because we said, God, if this can't support itself, it'd be very difficult for us to justify it. And to our surprise, it could support itself. And so from there, just doors started opening and things started happening, and here we are 2.5 years later.
I want to know more about this dream. You had it twice. Was it the exact same dream? Take me, in your deep sleep when you're thinking, oh my.
Sure.
Did it look like this?
It looked, I didn't have some of these buildings here, but it had buildings. It had the drive where people are driving up. It was me and her standing there kind of watching vehicles come in and enter the park. So, there were trees, you could see the animals in the background, you could see the vehicles going through the entry gate, and this being able to look off to the left and see kind of the walk-through part of the park. So I knew it wasn't just a drive-through. It did have a walk-through component to it, similar to what a zoo would have. And just being able to see kind of the animals roaming around, going wherever they wanted to go, was a pretty cool sight to see, and I knew it would be something a lot more unique and a lot more interaction than what you get at some zoos out there.
So the first person you told was your wife. After that, I'm sure people thought you were nuts.
So we knew that we needed to find land for it, and land around this area is incredibly hard to find. It's like asking people to part with their firstborn son, and so because of that, we didn't want to share it with anyone else until we had a better handle on what this would look like, if it was even doable. So the next people I shared it with were my parents and my younger brother, who happened to be in the area at the time. And so I told them about it, and then at the end of November, my wife and we were in the hospital. Our son was being born, and my parents and my two brothers were having Thanksgiving dinner, and they told my middle brother about it, and I knew that from the beginning, he would be the toughest critic, that if I could convince him that this could work, then I could convince anyone it could work. And so I was not there when he was first being told about it, so I didn't know what was being said. And so when I saw him a couple weeks later, the first thing he said when I walked into the room was, "What's this about a stupid zoo?" And so I said, "I don't know what they told you, but just wait until we get done eating and I'll show you what I'm thinking." And so we did, and I showed him, and he said, "Huh, this is not like what they described to me." And so he could see it. And what I didn't know until about a year later, that night him and his wife were driving back to Terre Haute, and they both decided that night that they needed to come back here and be a part of it whenever it actually happened. So he's now my number 2 guy. So I mean, if I'm not here, he's the one calling the shots, because he's the one that sees the big picture just like us, and sees the details as well. And so he's went from being my toughest critic to being your
biggest supporter. So how does a banker who sits down and puts pen to paper and crunches numbers now has to pick up feed and feed buffalo and feed wildebeest and take care of peacocks?
It was an interesting change, that's for sure. So my day started earlier out here. I was no longer working in an air-conditioned office. I was out in the heat doing things, and what I noticed to my surprise were my reflexes started coming back. So I think sitting in a desk for 10 years, my reflexes kind of gotten a little laxed, and then all of a sudden I started noticing when things were falling, I could catch them that I couldn't catch before, and when I was moving, I'd move out of the way of things. And so I think it's just working around some of the bigger animals like the water buffalo or the bison or things like that, or even just our skid steer. You always know that these are big animals, these are big machines. You have to be paying attention, you have to give them the respect that's they're due,
right.
And then that makes you a little more aware. But no, I've lost probably 10 pounds at least since I started working here, so I didn't have time to really work out before, and so here, just on a daily basis I'm running
gym.
Different places, or I'm lifting 50-pound feed bags or things like that. And so it's been a very cool transition. It still has its challenges. There are different challenges than what we're at the bank, but now with the bank I always loved my job, but there's nights now where I go to bed, tell my wife that I can't wait for morning to come, because I'm excited to get out here and continue doing things, because we know we have a lot of stuff to do before we can open it up with the public.
How do you take, so you found out that this is the former location of Rock Home Gardens, which a lot of people know about. You find this location, it is up for sale. So was that a long and daunting process to get approval for a place like this?
So with this location, we knew from the beginning that it could be an option. It was not for sale in the beginning, but we knew it could be an option. We'd kind of looked at the aerial map multiple times, and this location had quite a few challenges associated with it, enough so that we didn't really feel it was worth looking into at that time. And then we started pursuing other sites, and when we realized that those just weren't going to work out, we came back to this site and said, okay, let's say that we can build the park here. What would that look like? And so we took about 60 days during that time period, coming out here, walking it, looking at things, looking back at the aerial map, coming up with how could we make our vision fit into an already existing location that had a lot of buildings, had a lot of structures, had paths and things like that. So what all would be needed to make it work? And so we finally came up with a plan that we felt would not only work, but could even be better than what we were thinking of originally, just because there are a lot of huge mature trees here, which you don't find that very much around this flat farmland area. It's got the pond that we have in the background, and so some topography, some rolling hills behind us, so it already has some of the features we wanted, and then it's got a lot of the buildings and infrastructure that we were able to use. And so from there, once we realized that it was possible, we kind of started dealing with the challenge of Rock Home is known to a lot of people. It has a lot of history. We need to do what we need to do to make our vision happen, but we still need to respect that heritage and that history that it has. And so we started kind of thinking about how can we incorporate some of the rock structures, or what can we do. And so when we got here during those 60 days, we realized that the rock structures were not in good of shape as what people remembered them, that they were put in back in the 30s and 40s, and what the issue was that steel that was in it had rusted through, so a lot of them were not stable. So we began doing what we call the ASA test. So my son, Asa, when we bought the property, he was about 2 years old, and so if he could touch one of the rock structures and it wobbled, it was just too much of a liability for us to have, and so we would move those. We were able to we saved a ton of the flower pots and the crosses and things like that, and those will go kind of in different places throughout the park. And then on the south end of the property, as we expand, we left some of that fencing, and we'll incorporate that into kind of like a park flower garden type of area. So we're trying to do what we need to do, but still at the same time honor the heritage and history that was here.
So you got the land and you're preserving it, but probably the next step then is the animals, and that's what everyone is interested in. So how do you go about selecting the animals that are here in the park, and maybe talk about what you do have here that people will be able to see?
Sure. So as far as selecting goes, in the planning, we'd kind of come up with, these are the animals we'd like to bring in each year. So we knew what animals we'd start with in the beginning, and what animals we felt we could add each year. And when we brought in those animals that we thought we would have in the beginning, it did not look like we had many animals out here. So my brother and I, we would test drive the path, and we'd go 3/4 of it without seeing any animals. So I knew that my animal to acre number was incredibly conservative before, but until you see it in real life, you don't realize just how conservative it was. And so from there, we started realizing, hey, we could do more animals. What does that look like? And we had animals that we would like to have, but we kind of just left it open to see what was out there. So our animals usually come from 2 different places. One is from individuals that have had an animal or two, and for whatever reason, they need to find a new home for it. Or from other parks or zoos that just have some extra animals that they really don't have room for, or some places have animals that they just would rather not take care of through the winter time, and so they're trying to find a new home before winter comes. And so we kind of just had the mindset of whatever we can see, whatever we can get, that's what we'll make do with. And so we've got, at the park, we've got 61 different species of animals here, over 150 animals on the grounds now. In the drive-through, we probably have roughly 30 species, right around 80 animals. In the beginning, people would ask, what kind of animals do you have? And I would list off scimitar oryx, addax, eland, and people look at me like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So then I quickly realized when people ask me that question, I say, well, we have zebras, we have camels, we have a bunch of African antelope and things like that. And so people can wrap their heads around zebras and camels. They know
Sure.
what those are, but they don't know what a lot of the African antelope are. So we have animals that are native to 6 different continents, and so their species is native to that continent. None of the animals have come from those continents, and actually none of the animals come from the wild to be brought here. So all of our animals have actually been born and raised in the U.S. Majority of them have been born and raised in the Midwest here, so they're already kind of used to our weather, used to our winters and things like that, and so that definitely helps move things along.
What is the most unique animal that you have on property, and maybe the one that needs a little bit more extra love and care?
As far as unique or exotic, the most popular, most well-known are probably our zebras. We have a Grant zebra and we have a Chapman zebra. As far as more exotic than that, we have a nilgai. His name's Diamond. He's an antelope native to India. And then we have our blue wildebeest and our eland, and so both girls are native to Africa. And so they're bigger animals that you don't really see that often in other zoos. And then we also have our pair of hyenas here that are in our walk-through side. So those get seen when you go on the behind-the-scenes tour. And so a lot of zoos out there do not have hyenas, and so they're probably one of our most popular animals on the behind-the-scenes tour. And so they have a different diet, obviously, than what the drive-through animals do, because in the drive-through it's just herbivores. So only plant eaters, and then the big birds like emus and ostrich. So no predators in the drive-through. No predators will ever be in the drive-through. But so the working with the local butcher shops around and trying to get donations of meat and things like that probably make the hyenas a little more unique in dealing with and feeding on a daily basis.
I think what I found so interesting, and I just keep smiling when I look around because it's just such a beautiful place, but what strikes me is that all the animals are out there together, at least a vast majority, so many different breeds. Is that normal? I mean, you've got horses with peacocks and horses with llamas and bulls, and I'm sure I'm saying the names wrong, but I think that's just what's so interesting. Do they all get along? Are they all friends? Do they have quirky habits?
So when they come to us in the very beginning, when there was only a few types of animals, you could see that each kind of group kept to their own area. They would move amongst themselves, but each group kind of hung out and they would move to their own area, and that's the only animal that would be there. And then probably at the end of October is when we started looking out and realizing, wow, there's 13 different species just grazing together, or there's 10 different species actually laying down, bedding down together. They have a ton, 100 other places they could go on the property, but they're choosing to be next to each other. And that, it was that time when we kind of were reminded of, earlier on there was a person that said, this is not a Disney movie, animals don't just get along, this is real life. And so we can look out there every day and see that statement proving false. We thought around feeding time is when aggression would tend to come out in a lot of animals, and so we thought that would be the biggest issue. And really over the winter time we would keep the feed kind of close together and we would not really have any issues. Occasionally some of the bigger animals would kind of just push their way in and nudge other animals out of the way because they wanted the food, but there haven't really been any fights or any major issues like that. And now that we're open, we do try to spread the food around just to kind of help the animals be in different parts of the park, and that seems to work out great. So I mean, it's very cool to see the animals interacting with each other, getting along, and just hanging out together.
Take me from the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you lay your head on your pillow each night. Take me through a day in a life of what you go through, what your staff goes through at the park here each day.
Sure. So I have two younger brothers. Both of them are very involved, and their middle brother's wife is our office manager, and then my younger brother's fiance, she's kind of our event planner and handles the food side of things. And then we also have an Amish guy from the Arthur area that started working for us from the very beginning, and he's become an adopted brother. So usually when people ask me how many brothers do I have, I tell them 3. And so when I get up, I usually get up around 5:30 each morning. I get dressed and then I head to Daniel's house and pick him up, and then we get to the park probably around 6:30, 6:45, and then that's when usually the feeding starts. So you can see a lot of the animals will come up to the holding pen fence. They know that the red truck is what's got their food, so we'll load up the hay and the grain, and then Andy, my middle brother, and Daniel, they'll take it out, drive it around, and put it out in different places. They'll feed the other animals in different parts of the park, make sure they have food and water, and so that the feeding process probably takes about 2.5 to 3 hours each morning. And then when we're working with kind of keeping it from being overgrazed, we'll put out hay sometimes in the middle of the day and things like that, and that seems to help a lot. But then it's making sure all the other smaller animals on the walk-through side are fed, doing different enrichment things with them, whether it's putting their food in little kid toys or playhouses or things like that to make them kind of work for it or to scavenge for it, to just do something new and exciting that they can find interest in. I have tons of phone calls every day from people calling, wanting to know what our hours are when we're open, phone calls from people wanting to tell us they have an animal that they'd like to find a new home for, things like that. We get same thing with emails through our emails, as well as our messages on Facebook. Facebook is how we've gotten a lot of requests. Last week we got a 70-pound sulcata tortoise that's probably 2.5 feet in diameter from a couple up in Effingham that they just had raised him from a little little baby tortoise, and he was 10 years old now, but just too big for them to take care of. And so it's fielding those calls, and then it's trying to figure out, okay, if we can take this animal, where can we put it? And so these last 6 to 8 months, they've been a little different than what it will be in the future, just because we've actually been building the park now. And so we have a big list of projects that we've been kind of checking off each day, and so it's kind of figuring out what projects can we get done today. And so we're very excited about the time when all our phase 1 projects are done, and then we can just take a little bit of time and relax and kind of enjoy what we have more before we continue on with the project list. But it's working with animals, it's talking and dealing with people or other businesses, and then it's just building habitats, putting roads in, putting fencing up and things like that. So it's something new every day. It seems like every week a new project or two pops up. I know just over the winter time we were told that this pond was deep enough it wouldn't freeze, but it froze and it froze thick enough to where the animals could walk straight across it. And so that's one of the reasons we put this fence up back here. And so we had to spend a day kind of shoveling off some of the snow so they would see that there's ice there and realize that it was slick. But just things like that we weren't thinking we would have to deal with just yet. But just an example of projects that pop up that we don't really have on our schedule, but we have to make time to make it work.
I'm curious, have you had any funny experiences with any of the animals? Have they nudged you, kissed you, bumped you? Any fond memories of any particular animal?
Sure. So we have 2 of our big water buffalo. Dundee is our black water buffalo, and Charlie is our whitish colored water buffalo. Both were kind of giving rides before they came here, and so we knew that we can work with them to give rides. And so it had been a little bit of time before they had given rides, and we would get on them out there, and sometimes they'll do great. Other times they'll look for the lowest tree branch and run towards that to try to knock you off. And so that they've knocked a couple off before. Then Clyde, our camel, when I do behind the scenes tours, I take people out in our 6-seat side-by-side UTV, and as it's been getting hot, Clyde's been getting in the pond, and so he realized a few days ago that he's covered in mud when he gets out, and when he goes up to the vehicle, if he stomps his foot or kicks his foot, it'll spray mud everywhere. And so the first time he did that with our tour, people kind of screamed because they weren't expecting to get some mud sprayed on him, and so he picked up on that, and so now he tends to do that quite often.
He likes the mud.
So usually if I see that, I'll let people know, and if I know they don't want to get their clothes dirty or something, I just won't spend that much time with Clyde.
Old Clyde. Well, James, as we conclude our wonderful interview here today, what is the message? We have a couple of minutes. What is the message you would like to share with the public about the park? You know, some may be skeptical and some may not understand, but what would you like to say about your adventure area here?
So I know from the beginning, my wife and I have been very firm on the fact that if we can't provide a better home for the animal than where it came from, we have no business having that animal. And so from the beginning, we knew that basically it was animals first, people second, and so we wanted to give them big habitats. And so some places habitats are small, but you do see the animal. So one of the things we do let people know is we're here for the animals because of the animals, and so they have a big habitat, which may make it hard to see them sometimes. And so that's just one thing we want people to know, especially on the walkthrough side of things. But the other is we wanted to be a place that families could come. So we see nowadays everyone's schedules are incredibly busy. If you have multiple kids, they're probably involved in different things, and maybe you don't even have time to have a family meal together every night or something like that. So we wanted to be a place where families could come, something that would appeal to a wide age range. We have people that come up and thank us every week that they say, I've got kids 3, 6, 9, and 12, and they all love this. And do you have any idea how hard it is to find something that kids in those age ranges all enjoy doing? And so that's been very cool for us to see. And just we wanted to, a lot of kids have a lot of screen time nowadays, whether it's phone or tablet, computer, TV, whatever. So we wanted to be a place that reminded kids, reminded families that there's the outdoors, that there's ton of things that God's created that's amazing to see and experience, interact with, and just be something that would be cool enough for them to realize, hey, I don't need to look at my iPad today, or things like that. We get a lot of teenagers that come out here. Their parents say they didn't want to come. They thought this was going to be boring, stupid. Why are they coming out here? And by the time they leave, they love it and can't wait to come back. And so it's just been very cool to be a place where families can come and enjoy it together.
Well, James, we've sure enjoyed coming to your sanctuary, so we appreciate the experience that you've treated us to. And we hope thank you. And we hope the viewers out there are enjoying it as well. And we do appreciate you joining us on location at Aikman Wildlife Adventure in Arcola, near Arcola. And we'll see you next time here on the Paw Report.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
Arcola Vet Clinic in Tuscola and Dr. Sally Foote remind you to properly take care of your pets and are happy to help support the Paw Report on WEIU. Arcola Vet Clinic located at 140 West Sale Street in downtown Tuscola. More information available at arcolavetclinic.com.